The following video was sponsored by Capcom. It's surprising to realize just how briefly the Mega Man Battle Network series was around. It took them just 5 years to crank out 6 installments, and even though there hasn't been a new game since 2006, the series has retained a passionate cult following to this day. The battle system's blend of real-time action and card game strategy is still one of a kind. The depiction of the internet as a populated cyber world is delightful, and of course the music has that irresistible nostalgic charm that all Game Boy Advance games seem to have. In honor of the re-release of the series in the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, which comes out today, I want to break down a track from the 6th game in the series that gets me ridiculously hyped up: the boss battle theme, Surge of Power. This track hits hard from the beginning and never lets up, and today I want to look at just how it accomplishes this. The first arrangement technique used to project intensity is the sheer number of notes coming at you. Where other great GBA soundtracks try and approximate real-world orchestras by mimicking all of the limitations that come with those instruments, Surge of Power takes advantage of the fact that no human being ever has to play this music on a real instrument and hits us with these super fast 16th note arpeggios that rocket up and down an enormous range. We are coming out of the gate hot! This arpeggio outlines an F minor 7 chord in different octaves, and the bass starts on an F and moves to a D flat to C minor 7 in the second bar, which firmly establishes our F minor key center. But the bass and guitar both use blues scale lines to bring the flat fifth into the music for a little dissonant color. And this brings us to the second technique used to drive the intensity of the music. Once the melody comes in, we sit on our tonic F minor chord for quite a long time, but each individual voice finds their own way to bring in dissonant chromatic notes to add spice to the harmony. The bass line steps up from the root to the flat second, G flat, every single bar, and putting this dissonant of a note in the bass fills the music with a strong sense of darkness. The 16th note arpeggio synth line continues, sprinkling a couple of flat seconds and flat fifths into the end of each phrase. The melody is structured around chord tones of F minor 7, but gives us one note in the middle of each figure that clashes hard with the underlying harmony. First a flat 6, then a flat 9, and finally a major 7th that resolves down to the flat 7. In each of these parts, the chromatic notes aren't taken from a specific scale or anything like that, they're just dissonant notes that clash against the F minor harmony, and then resolve back into the key with the following note. Notice how none of these parts are in sync with each other either. They each step out of the key at different times and in different ways, and all stacked up on top of each other it sounds completely chaotic. Altogether, it does a beautiful job of conveying the sense of threat that you'd want from a boss battle theme. But besides this, we can't forget the density of the arrangement. This dissonant syncopated bass line with these blazing synth arpeggios around the melody would be enough to feel like a fully packed arrangement, but we also have this low guitar line playing a kind of chugging metal rhythm guitar part. The weird thing about this is that it's totally in the bass line's way. They're both in the exact same range and playing different lines centered around the same F note, though we have the bass stepping up to G flat when the guitar stays on F, and the guitar jumping up to different notes that clash with where the bass is going. Having both of these lines playing simultaneously in such a low range creates this muddiness that totally goes against conventional arrangement wisdom, and makes each part pretty inscrutable when you're listening to the whole thing. And yet, it's this muddiness and unintelligibility that actually contributes to the intensity of the piece. It's almost like the audio equivalent of TV static simmering underneath the rest of the music. This is such a great example of breaking the rules for a specific musical purpose. Another part of that purpose is for contrast. If the piece never left this dark place, we would gradually become accustomed to it and it wouldn't feel so threatening. But after this section is done, we barrel into another bit that breaks the music wide open with a big soaring melody over a D-flat major chord. Did you feel the music snap together there? Like all of the pieces fell into place all of a sudden? The chaos of the previous section falls into order when the individual parts stop clashing against each other and sync up right when this D-flat chord hits. The dissonance of the chromatic notes falls away too. The melody focuses now on F minor chord tones and pretty decorative notes like the 9th over this F minor and the sharp 11th over this D-flat. The synth counterline breaks away from its wild arpeggios into a more consistent rhythmic pattern that sticks within a reasonable range, and the bass breaks out of its insistence on hammering on the root and flat second and moves into larger leaps that outline the changing chord progression. The actual music hasn't gotten any quieter, we haven't lost any of the drive or intensity, but we've still successfully created contrast to the chaotic and threatening intensity of the beginning with a new, more courageous kind of drive. This courageous feeling doesn't last too long though, as the tune quickly starts throwing us curveballs. Out of this classic D-flat to E-flat to F minor to E-flat progression, we fall into an unexpected G minor 7 over D chord, this D note in the bass stepping out of the home key being the raised 6th of F minor. This kicks off a progression that keeps us on unstable footing, the bass weaving between the natural and raised 6th, while the synth counterline goes a bit off the rails. We see it superimposing unusual chords with its wild, blazing fast arpeggios, including a G7 arpeggio over this D bass note, moving to a B-flat minor arpeggio over top of this C bass note. This results in some really cool, colorful, and unpredictable harmonies. After this, we spiral out with a repeated D-flat to E-flat move. The shots in the guitar here leave space for the 16th note arpeggios fattened up with a 16th note delay effect, building us up so that when we fall back into our original F minor riff, hearing something that we're already familiar with feels like a weird, dissonant relief from the unpredictability of what we just experienced. Coming back to this intro riff makes you feel like the music is back where it started, and as a looping piece of music, we expect it to make its way back to the beginning and take us through the whole journey again over and over. But this is actually a fake-out intro that tricks us by adding in little dissonant surprises where we don't expect them. First, these parallel fourths that cut off the F minor arpeggio line that we've become so familiar with. Then, right before the loop back to the melody, this ascending figure alternates perfect fourth and tritone intervals for an alien-sounding line that defies conventional harmonic explanation. What a great way to segue back to the beginning. It feels like a slow descent from our brighter contrasting section back into chaos. There's this idea in music performance that you want to start a piece with less intensity than you might think you want, in order to ensure that you have room to grow later on in the performance. If you show your hand too early, you won't be able to bring the music to a satisfying climax later on when you need to. Surge of Power feels like it starts on a 10 in intensity and then just keeps cranking it up to higher and higher levels of hype. Instead of contrasting intense moments with less intense moments, the piece manages to trade out different kinds of intensity to avoid becoming predictable, and to great success. I hope you enjoyed the tune as much as I do. I'm super pumped to play the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, and if you are too, you can click the link in the description to check it out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.